What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I'm Scott and welcome back to another Fudge Muppet Skyrim Remastered build as voted for by you. Complete with a fully fleshed out backstory, a new set of skills with much better perks and role-playing choices, this is the Bonelord. The Bonelord marks his approach with the rattle of bones, and when many foes hear this, they know it means death. The Bonelord utilizes his immense knowledge of conjuration, specifically regarding reanimation, to summon the undead to fight for him. Even in death, his enemies cannot escape as the Bonelord harvests their souls for his magical weapons and brings back the corpses of the fallen to serve again as his loyal subjects. The Bonelord is garbed in the remains of slain dragons and wields a greatsword masterfully forged from dragon bone, believing he can channel the ancient power of dragons to work in his favor. Despite his manipulation of the underworld, the Bonelord has pure intentions and has a great respect for the sanctity of life and death. Driven by the loss of his closest companion, the Bonelord will stop at nothing to protect what he cares about. One of his loved companions in the lands of Skyrim will be the undead horse known as Arvak. You won't be able to get this until you play the Dawnguard DLC, but once you do get it, he'll play an important part in your playstyle. Using a sword from horseback is fast and obviously very fun as well. Getting Arvak will require you to do some tasks in the Soul Cairn, so we suggest you head off to Camelworks' channel to check out his newly released video. He'll show you how to acquire this skeleton, and if you love Skyrim, you should definitely subscribe to his channel for more details and very aesthetic guides. Personally, we find that the Soul Cairn drags on a bit, but maybe you'll love it. Regardless, the guide will help you get Arvak as quickly as possible so you don't waste a second of your precious time. Links to his video and channel are in the description. Don't forget to cast your vote for which remastered build comes next down below in the comments, and timestamps to help you move throughout the video can be found in the description. Your choices for next week's build are the Druid and the Cryomancer, but without any further ado, let's hop into the Bonelord's race, standing stone, and stats. The Bonelord is a male Breton of High Rock. The Bretons are a race known for their reputation as excellent mages. As a result, many become effective in various types of magic, and they have naturally high magic resistance. Thanks to his race, the Bonelord is naturally gifted with +10 to Conjuration. He has two special abilities, the first being Dragon Skin, which grants him 50% spell absorption for 60 seconds, and the other being a 25% resistance to magic. The Bonelord will use the Lover Stone early on as his skills are quite varied, and it's useful to level quicker in each one. But the two endgame options will be the Atronach Stone and the Ritual Stone. The Atronach Stone is common in our builds, and that's no accident. The Atronach Stone offers a bonus 50 points of magicka and 50% spell absorption at the cost of 50% slower magicka regen speed. This is totally worthwhile, and it's hands down one of the best choices for any build using magic, or even any build frequently in battle against mages. The other option is the Ritual Stone, which fits with the theme of the Bonelord perfectly. With this stone, you can reanimate every dead body within quite a large radius for 60 seconds. Which stone you use is up to you, but keep in mind if you use the Atronach Stone and cast your Dragon Skin ability, your spell absorption will be 100%, preventing you from conjuring during that time. His stat spread will be 60% health, 30% magicka, and 10% stamina. The majority will go into health simply in order to keep you alive in combat. 30% in magicka will ensure that you have all the magic you need to cast your conjuration spells, and it doesn't need to be any higher thanks to the reduced casting costs supplied by the enchantments and perks. Lastly, 10% of stamina will give you a little boost to mobility and a bit more punch when performing power attacks with a greatsword. The Bonelord was born in Evermore in Eastern High Rock. He was raised alone by his mother. His father had left before the Bonelord was born, and despite asking after him, his mother had never told him why. They were not wealthy by any means, but they got by. And one day when the Bonelord was only a child, his mother brought home a dog in order to provide companionship and responsibility into the Bonelord's life. He named the dog Emmerich and called him Rick for short. Whether it was a kind gesture by his mother or the fear that without guidance and understanding of compassion he would turn into his father was a mystery to the Bonelord later in life, but at the time he was simply overjoyed by the gift. In order to help put food on the table and in his dog's bowl, the Bonelord assisted in the shop of an old apothecary woman. When he first saw the establishment and the recalled old chemist, he was a little scared. The shop was lacking in windows, making it dark and dusty inside, even on the brightest day. Spiders held domain over the ceiling, behind old cabinets, and in bookshelves, and every flat surface was covered with jars and vials of ominous substances. He soon developed a bond with the old woman though, and she tutored him in reading, writing, and even some alchemy, and a little magic when he behaved himself. He worked there for many years, and even though he lacked a father figure, he had matured quickly to compensate. When he wasn't working and learning, the Bonelord was adventuring the outskirts of Evermore with his faithful canine, Rick. Rick had been the driving force for everything the Bonelord achieved, and as he grew into adolescence, that bond became unbreakable. Things continued on relatively trouble-free for a while until one day the tragic nature of life intervened and Rick grew ill. The apothecary had visited to console the Bonelord and attempt to help in any way, but was unable to save the dog's life. That afternoon, they buried him on the Bonelord's favorite walking trail. This destroyed the Bonelord. He had lost his purpose and fell into depression. His grief transformed into desperation, and one day when the apothecary left to run errands, he acted. He searched every corner of the shop hoping to find some elixir, some potion, or some spell that could bring Rick back to him. Just as he had given up hope, knowing that the apothecary would be back in any minute, he stumbled across an old purple tome on the bookshelf. He could just about make out the word conjuration on the spine. The door began to creak open and the Bonelord stuffed the book into his travel bag. As the apothecary re-entered the shop, he grabbed a broom and pretended to continue sweeping as his heart pounded in his chest. When he left work that afternoon, he strayed from the usual path home, instead continuing along the dirt track leading into the forest where Rick was buried. In his bag, he had an assortment of candles as well as the eerie old tome he'd taken. He was afraid and ashamed when he'd reached Rick's burial spot, and everything felt wrong when he dug the dog from his grave, but the Bonelord knew he was willing to do anything to bring back his best friend. He lit the candles in a ring around Rick's limp body, grabbed the book, climbed into the ring, and then began to read. After many failed attempts, he learned how to perform the spell and he cast it on Rick. The dog's limbs suddenly started twitching lightly and the Bonelord's anxiety was replaced with joy when he saw Rick's torso begin to rise and fall with each miracle of a breath. Rick looked up at the Bonelord and the joy was reciprocated. Rick leaped into his arms and they shared a heartfelt embrace. The Bonelord couldn't believe that it had worked, and for a moment he just enjoyed running his fingers through his dog's soft fur. He had been worried that even if it worked, Rick wouldn't be the same, but he could tell Rick was smiling and his tail was wagging as if he hadn't had a care in the world. As he ran his hands through Rick's shaggy fur, something changed. The fur was turning coarse and dry, and Rick's gleeful panting was replaced with a soft whimper. The spell was wearing off, and Rick was deteriorating. Every time the Bonelord stroked him, ash rose into the air. He was filled with dread as he watched his best friend leave him again. He cradled Rick's face in his hands and his eyes welled with tears, and the dog crumbled completely to ash. He let the ash fall from his hands and the tears turned into sobs, convulsing his entire body. He sat there long into the night before eventually getting the strength to return home. After that experience, the Bonelord never wanted to lose a loved one again. The pain was too much to bear. The thrill of casting the conjuration spell, despite the misery it brought with it, was exhilarating, and he knew there must be more effective spells in the world. When he had saved up enough money, the Bonelord decided to travel in search of knowledge and magic. He journeyed on foot across High Rock, finding his way to Daggerfall. Here he learned of the mysterious Synod Group and the College of Whispers, both of which had risen from the ashes of the Mages Guild. He knew this would be his key to further understanding, so he booked passage on a ship to Anvil. His time in Cyrodiil was less successful than he'd hoped. He discovers that the College of Whispers knows plenty about necromancy, however he has trouble locating members of these elusive groups who are willing to share the right information with him. Because of this, he took it upon himself to learn more in the Imperial City Library. While researching the dead and associated spells, he learned of the Draga in Skyrim. These men had died long ago, yet some force of magic had preserved them, keeping them alive for centuries. If he was going to learn to keep those he cared about alive forever, learning these secrets was how he'd do it. He wasted no time heading north to Skyrim, but as he approached the border, his plans were put on hold. He was captured by Imperial soldiers on the border and he was taken to Helgen for execution. After escaping Helgen, the Bonelord's motivation remains the same. He aims to seek out methods of preserving life through conjuration. He will seek out the Dead Thrall spell and other reanimation spells. He will find any excuse to delve deep into the caverns and cairns of Skyrim, hoping to uncover lost treasures and learn of the ancient magic present under the earth. Even though he focuses on bringing the dead back to life, he is not overly fond of killing. He will only do it out of necessity. He's not a fan of the negative stigma attached to necromancers either. Ultimately, he is very inquisitive by nature and has been ever since working in the apothecary's shop. He will try to seek out knowledge at any cost, even if it means sometimes doing the wrong thing, but he tries to remain moral and fair wherever possible. When he kills creatures in the world, he will try to honor them however he can. The loss of his dog taught him the value of life and to be reverent to the dead. In order to honor dead animals and beasts, he will harvest their pelts, pelts, furs, and bones to be put to use for equipment and in battle. When he kills his first dragon, he will be convinced that forging armor from the bones of these mighty beasts will allow him to respect the creature and channel its power for himself. In terms of factions, his main objective will be to join the College of Winterhold in order to acquire more knowledge of conjuration magic. He will feel a strong sense of duty when he discovers his true purpose as the Dragonborn, thus fulfilling the main storyline. He'll continue on to the Dragonborn DLC later on. As for the Dawnguard DLC, it most befits his moral compass to side with the Dawnguard, but there is a very real possibility that the thirst for knowledge and his ingrained curiosity may sway him towards the vampires. After all, the concept of immortality and the mysterious nature of the vampires may be too tantalizing to turn down for the Bonelord. The Dawnguard questline should be prioritized compared to many other side quests, as you'll want to get Arvak as soon as you can. So now that we know the Bonelord's backstory and roleplaying, let's look at his skills, spells, perks, and playstyle. The skills used for this build will be two-handed, heavy armor, smithing, enchanting, and conjuration. With these skills, the Bonelord will have access to the very best armor and weaponry, all while commanding hordes of the undead to fight alongside him. The Bonelord will use a variety of conjuration spells to help him in every situation. He will use Summon Arvak to conjure his undead steed. Arvak will provide useful mobility in his travels and evasiveness in battle. As well as this, the dark skeletal body and ethereal burning blue eyes are enough to intimidate even the hardest of adversaries. He'll also use Conjure Boneman to summon a support archer, Conjure Mistman to summon a support mage, and Conjure Wrathman to summon a support warrior, all of which will serve the Bonelord with unfaltering loyalty until they are slain or the spell runs out. Next, there is the Dread Zombie spell, which will allow the Bonelord to reanimate very powerful dead bodies for 60 seconds. Finally, there is Dead Thrall, the Bonelord's most treasured spell, and the one he wishes he'd been able to use in his youth. This spell grants him the ability to reanimate humanoid beings to fight with him indefinitely until they are killed. But in death, the bodies will not turn to ash and can be reanimated as many times as you want. As for shouts, the Bonelord will mostly use two that will act similarly to conjuration spells. The first is Summon Durnavir. This allows you to conjure a powerful undead dragon which will teach you the words to the Soltaire shout and also aid you in combat. The second, as you might have guessed, is Soltaire. This shout causes heavy damage to opponents, and if it kills anyone, it will fill a soul gem and reanimate the corpse as an ally. Even in death, the Bonelord's foes cannot escape him. That covers all of the Bonelord's spells and shouts, so let's get into the essential perks. While he may have the ability to raise the dead to serve him, the Bonelord is perfectly capable of holding his own when shit hits the fan. Armed with a mighty greatsword crafted from the bones of deceased dragons, his two-handed skill is not to be taken lightly. From this skill tree, you'll want to invest in the middle branch from Barbarian up to Sweep via Devastating Blow, the two mentioned perks being the most notable of the bunch. With Devastating Blow, you'll have the chance to decapitate enemies, and standing power attacks will do 25% more damage, and with Sweep, sideways power attacks will allow you to hit every target within striking distance. Next, we have Heavy Armor. As mentioned earlier, the Bonelord respects fallen foes by utilizing their bodies after death. That usually means reanimating them as allies, but with other dead targets like dragons, the Bonelord puts their corpse to use. He believes he can channel the ancient power of dragons by turning them into armor. For this reason, efficiency with Heavy Armor is a must to get the most out of Dragon Plate armor. From this skill tree, you'll want to take the left-hand branch. The reason for this is to get the Conditioning perk, which totally removes the weight of Heavy Armor and won't slow the Bonelord down when worn. As for smithing, we suggest taking the left branch of the skill tree, as it's the quickest way to get to Dragonbone smithing. Thanks to the Advanced Armors perk halfway up the branch, you'll still be able to craft heavy armors like Steel Plate and Nordic Carved while you wait to unlock Dragonbone. Due to the fact that Bonelord is also proficient in enchanting, the Arcane Blacksmith perk is also well worth the investment, allowing you to improve magical weapons and armor pieces. Naturally, that brings us up to enchanting. Thanks to the Soltaire shout and his enchanted sword, the Bonelord will be filling soul gems quickly, making enchanting a cheap and easy task. From this skill tree, we recommend following the middle branch up to Extra Effect and then taking Soul Squeezer from the right-hand branch. Extra Effect is massively important, allowing you to put 2 enchantments on each item, and Soul Squeezer means that you'll be able to get more Magicka recharge for your gear when using soul gems. Last but certainly not least is Conjuration. This skill is the bread and butter of the Bonelord's playstyle, and you'll want to take the third branch up to Twin Souls, and the far right branch up to Master Conjuration. Each perk in the right branch will reduce the casting cost of all ranks of Conjuration spells by 50%. From the third branch, Necromancy and Twin Souls are vital to this build. Necromancy increases the duration for all timed undead reanimations, and Twin Souls allows you to have 2 conjured allies as opposed to just 1. The The Bonelord didn't acquire his nickname for no reason. Tavern rumors among patrons and barmaids would suggest it has something to do with his love life, but just taking a glance at his gear should clear up any misconceptions. The Bonelord's aesthetic fits his title. The final build will be garbed in full dragon plate armor except for the helmet. The chest piece should be enchanted with Fortify Conjuration, and then the enchantment which has Fortify Conjuration and Fortify Magicka regen in one enchantment. The boots will have Fortify Two-Handed and Resist Frost, and the gauntlets will have Fortify Two-Handed and Fortify Magicka. He'll also wear a ring and necklace of your choice for the bonus enchantment slots. We suggest Fortify Conjuration and Fortify Two-Handed. In the early game, any heavy armor will suffice. Once the Advanced Armor's perks is taken, you can be upgraded to Steel Plate or Nordic Heavy Armor. For the headpiece, we suggest infiltrating the Dark Brotherhood to get your hands on the Shrouded Hood. In regards to his arsenal, you'll want to match the rest of the skeleton style by wielding the deadly Dragonbone Greatsword with the Soul Trap and Absorb health enchantments. Until this can be obtained, the best two-handed weapon you can find will make a suitable placeholder. It's important to note that using the Daedric artifact, the Black Star, alongside the sword is a valuable investment to keep the weapon constantly charged. Hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and that concludes this week's Skyrim Remastered build as voted for by you. This was the Bonelord. Social media links and timestamps for video navigation can be found in the description, as well as a link to our good friend Camelworks Guide. Finally, remember to Elder Scrolls down to the comment to cast your vote for our next remastered build. Your choices this time are the Druid and the Cryomancer. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I've been Scott, and I'll see you in the next one.